Hello everyone, Mike with Spray Jones, and we're going to cover off something unique here, the 10 commandments of spray foam. First commandment, spraying with the wrong environmentals. So this would be, it's too hot for your foam, it's too cold for your foam, it's wet, it's outside of the application parameters for the foam system that you're spraying. So we do have cold temp foam that can go on sub-zero, and we've got summer foams, but you don't want to be trying to use a summer foam into late season or vice versa. And you certainly don't want to be putting anything on, regardless of if it's the right temperature, when it's wet. So wet is the enemy of foam in all seasons. Wet with water and wet with ice, frost, and what have you. Second commandment, too thick, too quick. Now the spray foam has made a lot of leaps and bounds in the last few years. Particularly a lot of closed cell foams are coming out with their high lift foams where you can spray 4 and 5 inches of foam, closed cell foam, in one pass, and that's good because we need it. Open cell foam can be sprayed to indefinitely. It can go to infinity because of the chemistry nature, but if you are spraying a standard closed cell non-high lift foam, you're going to be capped with 2 inches per pass, and you want to make sure when you're in a tight area that you are not going to be putting it on too thick too quick. And that goes for roofs, that goes for joist ends, that goes for walls, that goes for any area. You want to stick to your per pass limit, and then you want to give adequate cooling time between those passes so that the foam can stabilize, not trap heat, and not thermally crack or disbond at a later time. Point number 3, not giving even levels of foam. Now this can be a little touchy because we've all encountered people that think that the foam should be perfectly smooth and perfectly even. It's just never going to be. It's a spray applied product. You can see in our videos that we can get the foam awfully smooth at times, but it's still not board stock. But it is not varying from 1/2 an inch to 3 or 4 or 5 inches all over the place. I've been in jobs where I've seen installers that have just no concept of depth control. The foam is anywhere from 1/2 an inch to 1 inch when it should be 2 or 3, and then it's all the way up to 5 and 6, and again violating too thick too quick on corners and transitions. So this means that you need to have an actual gun that is spraying properly to have an even dispersion of your pattern so that you can actually put the foam on without creating great big striving lines of mess. And then you have to have an eye for depth, and you have to have good hand-eye coordination. And some people just never get it, and those people shouldn't be spraying foam. So if your installer cannot get the foam to be even and consistent, you need to be thinking twice. Number 4, playing with the chemistry. This is a huge no-no. Now, building code certified foams that are made for going in buildings that are under the National Building Code, they come sealed. They come with a lot number, and they're not supposed to be played with. You stick the drum pump in, you suck what's in the drum into your system, and away you go. There's nothing to do with it. You don't add anything, you don't take anything away. But that doesn't mean that there isn't unscrupulous people out there. I've even come across one company that did not have access to the exact spray foam that the client was requesting. So these fraudsters went and dumped a dye into the resin side to make the product appear to be the same material as what the client was asking for, because it was a certain rated material that was dyed a certain color. So they committed grand larceny and fraud, in my opinion. So there are people out there that have gotten too old, or the material is they've played with it, they've done something to it, they've catalyzed it. I mean, you take open cell foam, it's water blown. You don't just top up the drum with a garden hose because you want to get an extra 1/3 out of the set. Like, you cannot play with the chemistry. You can't take a winter foam and make it into summer, and you don't take a summer foam and turn it into a winter system. You have your very specific blended systems from the factory. You don't mess around with them, and you spray them within the time that is allotted for the shelf life, and you give the client exactly what they're supposed to have. Number 5, not cleaning up, not shaving, and not caulking your work when caulk applies to wood frame construction, where you've got direct seams to the outside. So this is big. I've seen guys walk in, spray a job, and walk away. Now, unless this is pre-arranged with the client, I've done this a few times. People wanted an exceptional discount, and I said, all right, you prep it, we'll spray it, you do all the trimming, the cleaning, and the caulking. But there's legal problems with that. It's harder to check your work over. It's harder to see when you strip everything back whether something's missing, you didn't get into a crack or a crevice, and sometimes the material, the masking obscures that. But I'm just talking about in general, where you're expected to come in and do your job. You should be shaving your foam, trimming things off, getting everything ready for drywall, paneling, leaving no extra work for the next trade, bagging your garbage, carrying it off-site, putting it into the garbage can, shaving everything down so that it's ready to go. And then if you've got direct seams to the outside, they need to be caulked, they need to be air sealed. You're not putting a vapor barrier up, and you need to stop the light and the air from coming through all of the joints where the spray foam can't go. So that is an absolute must. Heard of one job where the installer sprayed it, did not do any of the caulking, and then it was drywalled, and they didn't know it until the first winter came along and the wind started to blow, and they had horizontal and vertical lines of frost all over the drywall. Complete disaster. Drywall had to come off. The house was a total failure. Drywall had to come down, and then it all had to be re-air sealed and cleaned up. Major mess. That was on the fault of the installer. They should have been doing the caulking. Somebody should have caught it. Point number 6, sending a rookie out to do a veteran's job. Now, we're all in different stages of learning and growing and everything, but this is everywhere. I mean, there are a lot of people that don't know what they're doing. They have very little to no experience, or worse, they think they've got some experience because they've taken some 2-day, 3-day, 5-day course, paid a couple $1,000 to somebody, and now they're calling themselves a sprayer. Well, I'm sorry, you're not qualified. You're not going to be ready to handle the rigors of what you're going to be encountering. So I mean, if you are sick, injured, or so busy with work that you decide to send your little junior helper out that's only been with you for 4 months, he doesn't know what he's doing. If he encounters problems, he's in no way, shape, or form ready to be on his own. I don't think I'm the absolute opinion on this, but it takes us 2 years to get somebody ready to be on their own. I mean, in year 1, they are learning how to spray, how to take the equipment apart, put it back together, how to get the job done efficiently, evenly, cleaned up, right? And by the end of year 1, we're at the point where we might try them out a little bit on a few jobs. But within year 2, we will be getting them to actually manage the projects, get done on time, back the truck up, pull the hose out, deal with the clients. If they're going to be sticking around at all with us, it'll be in year 2 that we're going to find out whether or not they can do it. So for us, it's taking 2 years before we're really fully comfortable with letting somebody out with $250,000 worth of equipment and spraying a job that could be $20,000, $30,000, $50,000. Doesn't even matter. It could be $2,000. You can cause serious damage spraying foam for somebody if you don't know what you're doing, and cause a huge amount of headache and have a huge insurance bill or lawyer bill real quick if you don't know what you're doing. So don't send rookies out. Send competent people that have been spraying and know what they're doing. Point number 7, wrong material or too old of material. Wrong material would be that you are using non-rated foam when you should be, roofing foam when you should be using closed cell 2-pound foam, or 2-pound foam on a roof, on an external roof, is a big no-no. Half-pound foam when you should be using closed cell. And there are certain situations a closed cell is not the right situation. You got a blind cavity and you can't see where you're going and you can't open it up and you have to get foam into it. Well, then Open cell foam a lot of times is the exact right tool for the job. So you need to know what material you should be using. Sometimes in industrial situations like hollow steel, we have to use a pour. You can't use a spray. You know, you got a 5-foot column that needs to be totally filled with foam because that's what the architect wants. Well, you can't do it in spray. Spray is going to make it about 2 inches down into the column and then open up and choke it off. So you need a liquid pour foam to get all the way down to the bottom. Likewise, unopened, a lot of the situations the foam has got a 6-month shelf life unopened. Opened, it's down to 3 months. It cuts it in half. So this can become a real sticking point. I mean, I've had drums before that are touching off on getting close. You know, they were end of the season and we get to use them up. But what I'm really addressing here is you've got some old product that's been sitting in your shop for a year or two. You know what I'm talking about. That was from the last job where you didn't have anybody to use it, and then somebody phones up and says they want to do their crawl space or something, and you think this is an excellent way to blow this stuff out because it's been sitting in your shop for the last 14 months. No, don't do it. Don't do it. The stuff will spray out. It will be funky. It will smell. It will cause problems. It'll crack. It's the reason they put shelf life on chemistry is that it starts to degrade and break down, and some of the chemicals that are inside of the foam will actually start to react with other chemicals and in essence start to kill it, rot it, make it go bad. And so it doesn't last forever, and don't be using it if it's past its due date. Point 8, overspray control. Oh, this is a huge one. You're spraying an airborne product. It is going to get on things. It's going to get on floors and walls and windows and cars and trim and concrete and tile and carpet. So if you're outdoors, you have to take extreme caution on which way the wind is blowing. Contain your spray. Spray has a marvelous ability to travel hundreds of yards outdoors and not get on anything like dirt or weeds, but get on Mercedes-Benz and BMWs and windows that have tint in them and all sorts of things. So you have to be mindful of, if you're outdoors, that's the most hazardous, dangerous type of environment, but indoors too. I mean, I've had people open up windows and doors, get cross flow, and I had a person that opened up the back door when we had the front door open, and it brought the wind through, took the spray, and the spray got on the door, on the trim, on the linoleum floor, because the wind carried it through. So you need to be masking, you need to be polying, you need to be blocking things off. In some situations you need to actually ventilate the home or ventilate the structure to give the spray some direction to go and control it and guide it. It's your job to do it. I always say to the client that we want to have minimal residual presence when we're done. So this is my blunt question to everybody, what are we going to get spray foam on that you're going to be upset about? And generally that will get people thinking about what either needs to be totally moved out of the area, or what can be protected ahead of time by them and then additionally by us. Point number 9, if you've been hanging on this long, continuing to spray when you know things are going wrong. Your pattern sucks. The gun is hiccuping. Like, you can actually see it. There's disruptions in the pattern. One minute you got pressure, and the next minute you don't. You had a blast going off ratio. You know what I'm talking about. Anybody that has been on the trigger for any length of time knows that there are good days and there are days that you totally pull your hair out and you are frustrated. If you get out and you are not able to make foam consistently and properly, and you know it's not looking and it's not behaving and it's not, the reaction profile is not what you've come to know, when all of the parameters are proper for substrate and your settings, you know something's going on mechanically with your equipment. All right, either in 9 times out of 10 it's at your gun. You keep spraying, you keep just pushing through because you want to get home at 5, or you got to get gone, or you got to, you're not coming back tomorrow and the boss doesn't want you here. Like, stop. You cannot keep spraying when you know you're having issues. I had a guy one time I saw back in my service industry days when I serviced the spray foam industry with technical assistance. I saw a moron that basically sprayed raw chemical onto a wall because he had to get done that day and it wasn't spraying right, so he just sprayed. He just sprayed. And this stuff was goo, and it was junk, and it was a blotch of this and a blotch of... It was just atrocious. And I used to hear guys say this stupid phrase, well, just keep spraying through, meaning like it might work itself out. Like the genie in the bottle might pop out, and somehow all of a sudden whatever was like clogging up will just like release, and then we'll be fine, and the gun will go, and I don't actually have to do anything and fix anything and figure anything out. How many times I was called to job sites over simple issues where the gun was not being cleaned up properly. Guys handed me a gun that had just gone through it top to bottom, and I pulled out stuff out of it like it had never been cleaned. And I just said to him, like, you hand me a gun and you tell me this is clean and it's got this kind of junk in it, like, you're either incompetent or lazy. Which is it? So do not spray when things are going wrong. Stop, fix it. Maybe even that requires you coming back tomorrow when your head is clear, because there's sometimes you get so upset with things you can't see what the solution is, and you just have to stop and attack it the next day. And that kind of segues into point number 10, and that is just maintaining your equipment. There's so many rigs that I have been in when I was doing my service work where everything was in a decrepit state. Seals were leaking, O-rings were leaking, hoses were battered. You need to have good hose heat to keep your chemical warm. That means you need to have insulation on the hose. That means the electrical system has to be operating properly, not cutting in and cutting out. The sensors all have to be working. You shouldn't be dripping chemical. There shouldn't be seals and fittings that have been dripping forever and leaving a great big stalactite on the floor of crystallized isocyanate. You know, you shouldn't be having drum pumps that have loose parts and things falling off into the drum, or they only work some of the time, or it always sticks, so you have to... You know what I'm talking about. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. You got to go into the trailer every once in a while and beat on the thing so to get it to reverse or to stop sticking or whatever. Or the trailer is freezing cold in the wintertime. Half the heaters are working, and the door doesn't shut, and oh my gosh, it just goes on and on and on. So if you need to maintain the equipment, maintain the gun, maintain the hose, maintain the parts that are going into the gun, it's nothing to spend $500. Nothing on the parts that go into the gun. So you need to have good parts, you need to keep them up, you need to know how to handle them, that you're not wearing them out in no time flat, because the boss will get mad at you if you are. But at the same time, you cannot be reusing things to the nth degree when they're not working. So all of the equipment being well maintained is an absolute must. Otherwise, you're not going to have any consistency with any of the other points that I've just said. If the equipment is in a decrepit state, I mean, I had a guy one time, his equipment, he should have just had his rig confiscated. I mean, it was just so horrible and in such terrible shape, and he never was ever able to spray properly. He just shouldn't be in the business. He's not in the business now, but I mean, there was a perfect example. I mean, he used to come to me and say, fix this thing, get it fixed so we can actually go to work. And I said to him, like, the problem isn't with me fixing the rig. The problem is you and how you're maintaining it and how you're operating it. And he didn't like hearing that. So I hope these 10 points will help you out, and apply them to your business, apply them to the contractor that you want to hire, apply them to what you want to do in the future, and may you be blessed. Click like and subscribe. Share this with somebody that needs to see it and hear it, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.